way that I try to encapsulate it is, imagine that the person who's reading this essay may in some ways be your mortal enemy. So then from an audience perspective, right, remember who you're writing for, and remember to kind of, keep in mind, who these people are. So let's imagine this process from, their perspective, right? From the admissions officer's perspective. It might be like a bleak midwinter day. They're sitting around, either a large committee table or they're on their own. They're surrounded by stacks and stacks of papers. They're overworked. They're exhausted. They've already gone through hundreds and hundreds of other applications. They can only spend a few minutes on your essay, right? So how can yours, sort of break through? So, what's this person looking for? Looking for people who are going to make an impact on their campus. They're looking for people who are going to help bring diversity in terms of intellectual diversity, demographics, skills, talents, et cetera, and people who support diversity. They also want to know what kind of roommate you're going to be, right? Not just who you're going to be in the classroom, but, who you're going to be, in the dorm room. And then also finally, usually the people who are going to be reading your essays, whether they're, fresh out of college and this is their first job, or they're, war horses and have been there for a while, they're not going to be subject specialists, right? So while incredibly smart people, they may not be specialists in your area of interest. So although you might know something very kind of deep and granular and esoteric, like the dynamics of kinks in a one-dimensional scalar field, they may not be able to access that kind of content because they don't have the academic background and knowledge base. So while that essay might work for a physics faculty person, it may not be the best way to kind of grab the attention of an admissions officer. And then remember that ultimately the admissions officers want to get to know you as a person, a three-dimensional human being with interests and aspirations, a unique personality. So you want to kind of keep that goal in mind as you're working through the essay writing process so you don't go wrong. So Michael, as someone who was the audience, right? What should people keep in mind about speaking to people like you and your colleagues, when they're thinking about how to approach the essay?
One of the interesting things that you just kind of said a second ago is you don't always know who your audience is going to be. A typical admission office may have some very seasoned veterans who've been doing this for 20, 25 years and have a way that they look at an application. You may also have some very young admission officers, what we like to call green deans, who are just out of school and may look at it in a very different way in terms of your application. We're going to talk more about specific topics. But I think, for example, if you get into something that's fairly political, you never know who's reading your essay. And if you take a really strong stand on something and it rubs that admission officer the wrong way, that may not be the best kind of essay to write. So again, think about who your audience may be, but not knowing specifically who your audience is going to be, so that you're doing the kinds of things that you said here, Chris, that you're demonstrating the kind of roommate that you can be. You're showing that you have this diverse background and different interests and things that you do, and then you won't get yourself into any trouble with whoever's reading it.
I may have learned this from you years ago, but I think the way that I try to encapsulate it is, imagine that the person who's reading this essay is some young, highly impressionable, right, underpaid, overworked person who does not come from your background and may in some ways be your mortal enemy. So how do you get over that hump?